Hi everybody. This is my first YouTube show. I'm not too sure what I'm going to call it yet, but I'm obviously reflecting on my life during a pandemic. I have a lot of thoughts, and part of it I was sort of inspired by something that I saw online, which I thought was really cool, is the idea of starting a journal for your child, because he's tickling my foot right now. Because, let's be real. This is going to go down in history as one of the biggest things to happen in at least 100 years, probably for sure since, the Second World War. So it would be kind of interesting if we started diaries for our children so that they can show their children about what life was like during this really difficult and bizarre time that is really going to change so much about how we operate in society, how we consume, how we change our daily life. It's pretty much going to change all of our biochemistry, and we also have to become on the same page. We have to adapt this idea of a collective consciousness. So what I've been thinking a lot about lately is how the idea of that's a cocktail because it is a pandemic. The idea that our society has been operating on a capitalist ideology where it's all for one, and it's very selfish. It's Darwinism. Where it is survival of the fittest and you're just looking out for yourself and your own success. And this has been going on for quite a while now, and it is basically the definition of modern Western civilization. So I believe that the big paradigm shift that's going to be happening in our lives is to abandon that ideology and embrace a new ideology that if we want to survive and succeed, we will survive, but if we want to succeed, we need to adopt a collective consciousness and also becoming more socially connected to each other. And we're so lucky this isn't like 100 years ago, because we would have been completely isolated in our homes. But no, instead I get to talk to you on what I think is my YouTube channel, and I hope that my camera is up straight. The first few times I spent the whole time talking sideways, and we're learning new behaviors, and I'm here to share that with you. Now, I am an artist, so I will be doing most of my videos in my studio painting, because I think it's super important for people to be inspired during this time that we're bombarded with the news constantly. And I think that artists are going to play a really interesting role here. We're going to play a role of creativity and inventiveness and innovation and hope and courage and grace. And we will be embracing, as a society, being able to think outside of the box and redefine how we go about our days. What's wrong? Oh no, it's okay. We can glue it back. Look, we can be creative. The bookbinder came off. Nothing a little super glue can't fix. Go ask Daddy. So, one of the things that I've been doing is wondering what to do, like everybody else. I think it's amazing that we have this opportunity to come up for air, because I don't think our life was sustainable. It was a rat race, and nobody had time to think. Nobody had time to just wonder. We forgot what it's like to be bored, and being bored is really good for the imagination. So let's sort of look at this as a way for us to evolve as a species, as humans, as a society. And so one of the things I learned how to do this week, I'm pretty excited, is how to make bread. Now my first go at it was pretty good. So I'm making another go at it right now. And I'll be honest with you, there's so much that I didn't know. I didn't know that. Hold on. Sometimes you want to say hi? My son inspired me to do the YouTube because if you have a kid, I'm sure they're obsessed with YouTube. So I've never baked bread before. I did have a bunch of yeast because I do pizza dough from time to time, and I do have a KitchenAid, and I do like making pasta from scratch. So, you know, cooking is not Chefy, pas maintenant, okay? No. So anyways, I didn't know what sifting was. I actually didn't even really know what this attachment was. But this attachment is lucky for me, it's a bread hook. Yeah, you can have some candied apples. Not the whole bowl. Well, take the bowl, have a few, bring it back.
Look at that ball
Yeah. So this is a bread that, oh, it's warm already. The yeast is rising. You want to say hi? I'm doing a YouTube. This is my husband, Rob. He owns an event rental company, so it's very confusing right now because there's no weddings in the near future or hotels having conferences.
No, very slow. Lots of time.
Lots of time. Yeah, so I got up today and I did some chores and disinfected all the high traffic areas and had some lunch, started watching that show. What's it called, Rob?
Tiger King.
The Tiger King. But I was really tired. I didn't sleep much last night because I had a coffee for the first time in 3 weeks. And it didn't really work for me. I haven't had coffee in 3 weeks because it was just making me too excited, too stimulated. And I don't really need that right now because, you know, I'm an artist. I have an overactive imagination. And it took me a few weeks to wrap my head around the whole pandemic and shed a few tears and all that, but no, I'm looking forward, I'm being optimistic. Anyhow, we started watching that show and I ended up dozing in and out, and I'm thinking that guy has lost his noodle. I wonder how he's gonna survive the pandemic with all his tigers. So from what I understand is that thanks to some farmer friends of mine in my town, because I live in a farming community, that the trick to a really good bread is in the sifting. And by sifting, I don't really have the right thing for a sifter, but I've got this really cool thing for loose tea, so I use that, and then turns out that instead of using, like, you need 5.5 cups of flour, but when you sift it, 5 cups of flour ends up being more like 5.5 cups of flour. So I'm hoping that this will become a lighter, fluffier bread, although I really have no complaints about the last one. So this one, what I do is I'm kneading it, and I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I'm sure gonna try. Because the last one was so good, we ate the entire loaf of bread within like an hour, but I did get 2 loaves out of it. And you can do an Italian, well, I need to put it aside in a bowl with olive oil and a wet cloth, and let it sit for about an hour or 2, and then it's gonna double in size, and then after that, I can cut it in half and either roll around, which is like an Italian style, or I can make it more long and skinny, which is like a French style. So I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I mean, I am wearing my Italian apron that says Roberto. Well, I'm wearing my husband's Italian apron because we got married in Italy and our honeymoon was in Italy, and we bought this at the Amalfi Coast. The Amalfi Coast. My parents actually bought it for us at the Amalfi Coast. It has a pretty funky hat that I'll wear another time when I make pizza or pasta. So, I hope that you guys will subscribe. Yeah, that's probably about enough. I hope. I don't really know. But you guys can give me tips because we're all in this together, and I promise not to laugh at your bread if you don't laugh at my bread. So, I hope hope everybody has a great day. I hope that everybody is adjusting in their heads. And I am going to get this all nice and ready in its little bowl so it can do its first rise. Look at me, I sound like a professional. It's only my second time. So once the food chain, once that bottleneck stops, all the stores will be full of flour and yeast and stuff, and I highly suggest getting your hands in some dough or some dirt and start growing stuff and see how we can just slow everything down and learn from nature again. Appreciate our food, appreciate our farmers. Oh yeah, so that's gonna sit there for about an hour. I'm gonna put a nice warm wet cloth on it and let it double in size, and then maybe I'll show you the next phase. Happy Sunday.